All right, let's get into these fights. Let's talk about them. Let's get started on this main event. Really was a good fight. I was quite surprised, honestly, by a few things. The jab of Rob Font really was the move of the fight. Really dictated everything with that jab. Um, Garbrandt early on in round 1 and 2 was able to find some success reactively shooting and takedowns as Font kind of overextended a few times. But other than that, he really didn't have anything for him. He caught him with a few punches here and there, as it's a 5-round fight, bound to happen. But at no point did Rob Font look really in danger. Even under those takedowns, it didn't look like Garbrandt was really chasing anything, any damage or any submission. Kind of was holding him down for a little, then he kind of just backed up. And then after those first 2 rounds, the takedown stopped. I think a lot of it was the jab, just irritating him, putting him in kind of taking him out of his element, Was unable to get anything going on his hands. He kept trying to dig back to the well with sitting on the fence, looking for the big overhand. Garbrandt was, which Font just stayed out of range, kept pounding him with this thudding jab, pierced right through his defenses, left him a mess on the feet. He was kind of in the headlights of that jab, and just waiting and reacting, trying to react to whatever Font was doing. He's having a hard time trying to go first and be first. Yeah, it was really just the perfect game plan from Font. I anticipated in my pre-fight breakdown that Font would switch it up early and get Garbrandt worried about things on the feet, because I thought Garbrandt was going to what's the word, to make a threat on the feet, I guess, early on with his boxing. I thought the hands would be threatening enough that it would force Font to shoot in a takedown, or just want to shoot a takedown off bat to try to get Garbrandt thinking differently. But it was vice versa. It was really Font got to it right away on the feet, and Garbrandt was kind of slow to it, and then had to reactively shoot in to kind of stabilize things and get things going back the way he wanted. But yeah, this is phenomenal performance from Font. There's not much you can detract from it. His fighter that he fought against had a good long break. Looked like he hasn't been knocked out recently. The chin's got to be as healthy as it could be. He's not catching anyone off this was just a straight up hard fight, hard top of the line fight, and he did exactly what he needed to do and made a statement, puts himself up in there. Really, there's no one else above him in contention, I would say, other than Sandhagen, Dillashaw. If Dillashaw knocks out Sandhagen, spectacularly or something, and then obviously the Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling. But Font, he's put himself up in there in that top rank of fighters now. No easy fights, tough fights. The takedown defense, I think he's gonna have to invest into, because if he's fighting anyone other than Sandhagen, the takedowns are going to be a big threat, because he probably has the hands, the boxing advantage over most of these top level guys, just the pure technical boxing, especially what we saw him do with that jab. People are going to be shooting in on him, and especially if Garbrandt was able to shoot in these reactive doubles. Not saying he's a bad wrestler, he's a good wrestler, a good high school wrestler, but it's not his main game plan. Whereas some of these guys like Aljamain or Jan, they actually will wrestle offensively with a plan to submit or, put good damage down on the ground. I could see him running into some issues there, but I also feel that the damage or the threats he poses on the feet will be enough to at least make compelling, interesting matchups at this top level of contenders. There's not much else to say about that. It was a great win for Font. Garbrandt didn't look too bad, that his chin held up. He didn't really ever chicken leg anywhere, other than him just not being able to get started and do what he needed to do to win I thought he looked pretty good, you know. He has some things he needs to work on. I think he really needs to, especially on the feet. He's so fast. He needs to be first, you know. He can't get lulled into waiting for counters, because then he's taking damage each time he's waiting for these counters, and then it's like, is he hitting it or not? You don't know. I think he needs to go first, and either with, you know, like those takedowns he did were pretty sweet. If he could have kept those going, that could have changed the tide of the fight. And if he went first, because the guy is so fast, he's got such a fast jab, such fast hands, there's such fast combinations, I think it really hurt him to not go first at any point, really. I mean, it's harder than you would think when you got this guy throwing a long, heavy jab into your face every time you try anything, but you know, that's the fight game. Yeah, let's move on to this next fight. Xiaonan versus Esparza. This is actually another one that kind of surprised me. Esparza two things were surprising. It was surprising how much more active Esparza was on top than I had seen her in some of her other fights. She really was wasting no time slicing through Xiaonan's guard, you know, picking up these takedowns off those front leg not side kicks, just front leg roundhouse kicks, you know, lead roundhouse kicks that Xiaonan likes to throw a lot. She was able to pick up takedowns off that pretty easily, and when she got on top, I did think that if it made it to the floor, Esparza would have a big advantage over Xiaonan, because she's shown defensive vulnerabilities in the grappling, and I mean, that's really what Esparza's best at. But she really, so round 2 is when it finished, and I don't know if she got her to this crucifix position round 1 as well, but round 2 she got that takedown, just kind of slid through her like a butter knife through butter, you know, and was able to get a crucifix on Xiaonan and just put down damage that, you know, Xiaonan couldn't get out of. She was just mounted with that crucifix, getting short elbows and punches rained down. Esparza was actually like putting in damage on the ground at a pretty quick rate, you know. Sometimes she can be a little slower and a little more of a smothering, just kind of top controlling grappler, but here she really pushed herself to that more kind of dangerous position, and it paid out. She got the finish over a top contender. Yeah, that was surprising how good she did on the ground, or not necessarily how good she did, because I did expect her to control Xiaonan, but just how quickly and the damage she put out. Now, I'm not used to seeing that. She seemed like there was another level of kind of intensity in chasing that finish here, which is good to see. And I was also surprised at how bad Xiaonan's takedown defense was. Yeah, I thought she would be able to keep Esparza away for longer and use that length advantage she had on the feet, but it was probably a combination of the lack of defensive wrestling and grappling, and just that Esparza's that much better at doing that. You know, she just got right in her face real quick. She fought like her best fight that she could have fought against Xiaonan. She really didn't get damaged much on the feet, controlled her on the ground, and finished it. It was great. So that was surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. I thought that was going to go the distance, but Esparza, she said, "Shut the fuck up. I'm finishing this." All right. And then third fight of the night, we had Tafa versus Jared Bandera, which was kind of what I thought it would be. It went the distance. Kind of a slower fight between these heavyweight fellas. I thought Tafa would be the better boxer of the two. He has quicker hands and hits harder. But Bandera really, he looked quite good on the feet here. His last fight, he struggled against Sergey Spivak. Just got taken down and brutalized on the ground. Was not able to get back up. But in this fight, where there was no threat of going to the ground, really, I have not seen Tafa make a takedown yet. The only way he puts people on the ground is by knocking them down. But I thought Tafa would be a bit more competitive here, but it was kind of just like 10-9 rounds for Jared Bandera, you know. At distance, he was landing jabs that were kind of irritating Tafa. He was throwing good body and head kicks that, even though they're not that hard, there's still a big leg, and it's keeping Tafa honest, and he has to keep those hands by his head and sides to block these kicks. And then up close in the clinch, Bandera seemed to be overwhelming Tafa. He was throwing good elbows, big punches over top. He just seemed to be beating him, outpointing him, beating him slightly at every little area they were engaging in here. There was big moments for Tafa. It definitely wasn't like a domination. He opened a big cut on Bandera's head, winged a big overhand right. I think it's like maybe a lead right hook. I don't know. He's kind of paralleled stance on the fence when he threw it and just clipped him. And I think it was just more of the glove. It made probably the impact of the punch, but also I feel like the rubber of the glove just like tore his forehead skin. Got a big cut, but it didn't seem to bother him, and he was able to pump out a nice unanimous decision over Justin Tafa. Yeah, I think he'll have some fun fights. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to see how he looks against anyone that can grapple and that wants to wrestle, because he did not have answers his last fight. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how he keeps playing out. Justin Tafa, you know, it's kind of like that Mark Hunt-esque, not prototype, but just that sort of type of fighter, I guess. He's throwing big punches. He's looking for big boxing, wants the knockdowns. Not really any of the threat. There's not really a kicking threat, not really a grappling threat, not really a clinch threat. Just looking for the big knockout punch, which is a lot of guys in the heavyweight division, and it's not super technical up there. So I don't honestly could go pretty far with that if he's able to put some knockouts behind him or on his record. I think he's a little small for a heavyweight, you know, height wise and mass wise. He could be better suited to try to make it down to 205. I don't know. Maybe he carries big enough power and smooth enough hands there. I don't know. Those guys are quicker, and they tend to be a little better rounded. But yeah, that wasn't a bad fight. I had lower hopes than how it actually played out. It was a fairly entertaining scrap back and forth. Moving down the list, Felicia Spencer and Norma Dumont Vienna. Norma Dumont looked surprisingly good in this fight, and another surprising aspect of this was the lack of takedowns from Felicia Spencer, or just the lack of even attempting grappling exchanges. She kept it on the feet and was kind of like fighting this, like almost like point fighting-esque fight, kickboxing point fighting-esque fight against Norma Dumont. You know, Spencer was just throwing these like lead leg side kicks and hook kicks, you know, throwing countering punches when the time came, but she wasn't doing all that much on the feet. Let's look at the strike count. Actually, it's pretty close. It's pretty close in total volume. A slight edge to Norma Dumont, but Norma was really throwing the harder punches. She was waiting on the counter a lot. She wasn't really going first that often, which I kind of got her in trouble a bit in the later round. In the last round, really, when she started to slow a bit, and Spencer was able to kind of put things on her a bit there. But other than that, it was really a lot of kind of just like circling around the middle. Norma Dumont would wait for Spencer to do something, and then would just counter with like a flurry of 3 punches and then like a leg kick, and was throwing the heavier punches. Obviously, like, caught her a few times, and you know, you could see on Spencer like, oh wow, I just got hit with kind of a big punch, kind of, you know, like a little wobbly on the feet. Yeah, and that there was no takedowns other than the one that Norma Dumont put on Felicia Spencer in the 3rd round. She had put Spencer onto her back. Didn't really get much out of it. Spencer was able to stay safe within her guard. and was able to. I don't know if she wall walked back up or how the position ended up shifting, but she did get top mount over Norma Dumont at the end of the round. I don't think she had a takedown. I think it was more of maybe Dumont pulling guard from the feet. I don't know. It doesn't look like on this stat sheet. Doesn't look like Spencer got a takedown here. So I guess that's what we're gonna roll with. But yeah, Dumont looked good. Her cardio held up much better than her other fights. Her chin held up way better. I think a lot of that was the cutting the weight down to 135. I don't know, because this was at 145 and she looked really good. Much better, a much more entertaining fighter here. Was able to have a higher output, keep the punches going, did not just like die. I mean, I guess we really didn't see the things that were giving her problems. Where it seemed to me when I was watching like the Megan Anderson fight, it seemed like the clinch work back to the striking, she gets slow and sluggish and is vulnerable on the feet there. We didn't really get to see that because of the lack of clinch work from Spencer. She really only got her into the clinch that third round, and she was having pretty good success there because she would push her up. She would push Norma Dumont against the fence. Throw these big she'd throw elbows. She was landing good elbows and punches and controlling her on the fence. Like, she definitely had her biggest moments there when she had Dumont up against the fence, forcing a clinch exchange. But she just didn't do that enough, She like fought 2 rounds of like this kickboxing point fighting stuff, and it's like, well, this other girl's a little bigger, a little longer, a little stronger than you. I feel like Spencer would have been much wiser to force some exchanges, tire Dumont out, slow her down. We've seen what can happen. Maybe her cardio's that much better, but I feel like she could have tired her out, because at round 3, Norma Dumont was much slower than round 1, and she was really looked vulnerable on the feet, even to Felicia Spencer, who isn't that dangerous on the feet. Spencer was starting to land pretty good in the 3rd round. So I still feel like that vulnerability of the clinching, of just mixing the martial arts, the grappling to the striking, that's hard for her still, it seems like. I don't know, because we really didn't get to see that much of it, but yeah, it was a good fight. She looked a lot better than her last performance. Or her last performance, she actually got the win. It was over like Ashley Evans Smith. It was pretty similar to this sort of fight, kind of like a striking point fight on the feet. But yeah, surprised me. I thought Spencer would be able to do what she had to do to get the win, and she did not. I still think she is one of the more tougher fights in the women's featherweight division, which there's not many. But yeah, that was another kind of surprising one. We had a card switch up. When I did my pre-fight analysis, we actually had David Dvorak versus Howling and Paiva. It was supposed to be this 4th or 5th fight on the list. I think it's number 5. But Paiva fell out. I think it was something about weight cut. It was like having bad stomach cramps and headaches and stuff. I mean, the guy's pretty big and long for featherweight or whatever. I think it's feather bantam. I don't know. Either way, probably would be wise of him to move up. If you're getting hospitalized off the weight cut, you're probably killing more of your talent in that weight cut than you are, being able to like get the benefit out of it. But because of that, we had Bill Algeo and Ricardo Ramos hop up to the main event. So that's what we got right now. That's what we're gonna talk about. That was a good fight. I thought it would be Bill Algeo winning. That was my. I don't think I really made a prediction on the last show because it was one of the undercard fights. I wasn't really going that depthy on them, but when I looked at it, I thought it would be Bill Algeo taking it. The fight played out pretty interestingly. Ricardo Ramos looked a lot better on the feet. He sometimes put himself in very vulnerable positions, doing like silly kicks and stuff. Didn't see any of those, which made me very happy because that's just danger. It's just unwarranted danger. it's not doing anything good for him. He looked a lot better there, a lot more defensively sound. He was landing good punches on Bill. Algio's not like a crazy defensively minded fighter or anything. Kind of more of an offensive striker with keeps the hands low, lots of head movement and footwork that keep him safe. Hamosh was still able to find the target on that, and the real tale of the fight that really changed and dictated who was successful, I feel like, were the takedowns by Hamosh. He was mixing them quite well. After, like, he'd land a big punch and immediately shoot in on that double leg and force him to the floor, or would get Algio, get him in a clinch and trip him. Like, he was doing really good. I think he had 8 takedowns or something. Like, Algio was doing pretty good at defending himself once it made it to the floor and getting back up in a reasonable amount of time. But he succeeded too many takedowns, and I think that's ultimately how he lost the fight. It was a unanimous decision. I thought it was a bit crazy, the scorecards giving 30-27s out. I don't think 10-9'd it. I don't think Hamosh 10-9'd it every round by any stretch. But I do think he won the fight. I think it was closer to like maybe a split decision or something. But, you know, the right guy still got the win. If Algio could shore up that takedown defense a bit, and I mean, granted, he's fighting a pretty good takedown artist, but I think that's kind of been a tale of his in these UFC fights, has been struggling with some takedowns. If he could up that, he would be really quite a threat, because he's very loose on the feet. Does a lot of shifting punches, throws nice whipping blows. I think he could have won this fight if he was able to stop some more of these takedowns. You know, he was good at getting back to the feet, but I just don't. The takedowns still add up. You know, and like 8 takedowns, that means a lot, especially when the rest of the fight was moderately close. You know, the significant strikes were only about 20 diff off. I mean, the total strikes, Algio almost had him doubled, but yeah, it was a good fight. I really liked some of the shifting body blows that Algio was throwing. You'd shift stances, and then whatever punch was his lead hand, he would, that's becoming his backhand. He'd shift and whip that into the body. And things like that. I was enjoying to watch. And he was defending himself quite well, but Hamosh was just a step ahead in those ground exchanges, and he wasn't just defensively just open on the feet or anything. Even though he's getting edged out on the feet, he was so dominant with the ground performance of his that it kind of just swung the balance in his favor, I feel like. So I'm interested to see who he fights next. He poses tough problems for a lot of these guys at featherweight. He's gonna test a lot of these guys' takedown defense, and I think he makes it tricky because a lot of grapplers will really try to work for that takedown right away off rip in the fight, because it's obvious that's where they want to be. They want to be in your comfort zone. But Hamosh, he seems much more laid back about when he decides to put it to the floor. He's willing to stand on the feet, have a fight on the feet, and he's willing to look for his opening to take it to the floor and get to the back or do whatever he needs to do. Whereas sometimes you get the feeling where sometimes grapplers are just like so nervous on the feet against this striker, and it's like you could tell they like are really needing this to get to the ground to feel okay. Like they're just like, they're feeling a lot of pressure, uncomfortable, like they're kind of making questionable decisions because they're under pressure. You don't really see that from Hamosh. He seems comfortable on the feet, his chin held up. Not that Algio's like a thunderous hitter or anything, but his chin held up against all the punches. He didn't really seem to be wobbling around or anything, and he was able to kind of just take it to the floor whenever he wanted to. He looked good. I'm interested to see how he fares against some of these higher level featherweights, because there's no easy fights in featherweight, man. A lot of these guys are really good at least stuffing takedowns and staying on the feet, and everyone at featherweight seems to have hands. Everyone at featherweight seems to have some sort of like striking acumen. I don't know. I think he's breaking into a tough division, but it'll be interesting to see how he fares against some of these other competitors. And then the starting off the main card, we had Jack Hermansen and Edmund Shabazian, which was a pretty interesting fight. It did. This one I felt good. I felt pretty good about my predictions on. As the fight went on, it kind of did. Hermansen was able to kind of employ that Brunson-esque game plan of just like, bide by on the feet, find your opening for that takedown, and then soften him up, pound him out, and just grind him on the ground because you're the superior grappler. You're able to. It's easier for you to stay on the ground, get that top position, and then just soften him up with elbows, punches. First round, I was kind of worried for Hermansen. Shabazian was looking very sharp. The punches were looking really good. He was hitting hard. It looked like Hermansen was uncomfortable. And actually, I wasn't really a fan of how I feel like Hermansen kind of I feel like regularly in his fights he comes out the gate kind of hot, like a bat out of hell. He's that high octane. He's kind of jerking his head in and out, like really making the fighter, making his opponent, expect something, and kind of put them on their back foot because he comes out so hot, so ready to throw some, slam these leg kicks, shooting it on these takedowns. Maybe he did it because he didn't want to tire out, but I feel like he could have not had such a rough first round if he kind of came out the gate a little slower. It was a little bit more like, it was a slower start. He kind of was just wanting to jab and kind of feel his way on the feet. And Edmund was kind of putting hard punches on him right away. And I was hoping this didn't turn into another Vittori-esque affair where Hermansen is or he's against the guy who can stuff all his takedowns, get up when he needs to, and then he's just getting lanced on the feet, because what it looked like round one was going to occur. But I don't remember if he got the takedown round one or was round two, but once he started it, it spelt the end for Shabazian. He seems to, on the feet, he's super good. He really has quite nice shot choice. He stays within himself, doesn't overextend, has heavy power in his hands. But he struggles at getting out underneath these higher level grapplers and just making sure he doesn't get there, Or he need either that or, employing more threats to a wrestling style fighter, Maybe some more things right up the middle, some things that are going to keep him at his distance and meet him, linear strikes that can meet the wrestler as he's coming in, maybe to try to shoot on you or something. But yeah, that was a round 2 and 3. It was just like the Brunson fight where he's just kind of he's just top mounted him. He's just easily controlling him. Really, it didn't seem like Hermansen was really working that hard off the top. It was just softening him up, pulverizing him. I'd like to see Hermansen take a step back down into some, higher or some lower ranked fighters. He has good potential. I don't want him to kill his potential fighting tough, experienced killers, He's only 23. I think a bit more game planning, a bit more work in the grappling and area, just on managing his distance a bit better there. A bit more on and if that's something he's good at already, maybe a bit more work on getting up immediately, because that's really a key on a lot of these people who are wanting to take you down. Is if you can't stop the takedown, if you're not a little shit brick house and you can't just sprawl and put your hips heavy on them and just stop people from getting takedowns on you, you need to be able to get back up right away after every takedown. To call into another fight that we'll chat about a little bit later, the Josh Coolabao, and he fought this good Chinese wrestler. can't remember his name, and I think if I did remember it, I would have mispronounced it. But he was I think his first fight in the UFC, he looked good. This wrestler guy was putting takedowns on Coolabao, but Coolabao, and even though Coolabao was the taller, kind of lankier guy, was unable to stuff the takedown on the feet. He would accept this takedown and immediately just like rubber ball bounce back up, you know? And then this wrestler is now exploded, used a lot of energy, and gotten zero rest out of it, you know? I mean, it's hard to do, but it's just one of those, like, you just got to do it, you know, to win this fight and to make the guy, you know, tire him out. Because that could have worked very well for Edmund, because Hermansen does slow, and he does kind of wilt if he's unable to get his wrestling going, you know? If he's on the feet, he's feeling uncomfortable, shooting in, he's getting stuffed, he's got to get tired because he's using a lot of muscle, getting no rest, you know? Then it's you're vulnerable to strikes. You can't react as quick. You can't, you know, you can't choose to defend everything as much. There's going to be holes, and then you can get dropped. But that didn't play out like that, you know, and Hermansen was able to just control him and soften him up. But yeah, I still think Edmund Shabazian has good potential. He's a good prospect in this division. He just needs to head back down to the lower ranked guys for a bit, work on some of that defense, that takedown defense, and getting up right away. You know, scrambling on the ground, not accepting position. When you accept position against these grapplers, they're gonna concrete and like smother and like make it that much harder. It's like your best chance is right away before they have time to really settle in, you know. But let's chat a little bit about some of these prelim fights. Won't go into too much depth on these, but we'll talk about some of the things I thought were fun, some interesting ones. Ben Rothwell, Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett, you know, he gassed out about round 2 and got submitted. That's about what I saw. I mean, round 1, the guy was huffing wind. He's pretty undersized for this division, and he wasn't really able to, I don't know if he wanted to, but he wasn't really able to get any grappling going against Rothwell. And maybe Rothwell's just like a tough fight for Barnett, you know, it's super huge, heavy guy who throws long, heavy arms and can stop a takedown because he's fucking massive, you know? But he looked like he was struggling in this fight. After round 1, he was really sucking wind. He was having a hard time getting his hands where they needed to be. Landed on Rothwell. Yeah, good win for Rothwell. He submitted him. I don't know if it's a guillotine or an arm triangle or something. It looked like Barnett was about to yak on the floor after. I mean, that's how you could tell. I mean, he's looking like I do after I fucking roll with my buddies. Looked like he was about to lose his lunch, but, you know, I guess that's the cardio stuff. Maybe, we'll see. I don't know if he's going to continue fighting here in the UFC or if he's just getting maybe like a 1 or 2 fight thing and then getting yeeted out. But, you know, I think the guy with some shored up cardio could be an issue for a lot of these heavyweights who have no fucking grappling acumen other than their huge weight, just stopping takedowns and stuff. We had Mcgee versus Claudius Silva. Surprisingly good performance by Mcgee. I thought he was kind of like an old washed up vet. His last fight I watched was versus Carlos Condit, and he didn't really look that spectacular there. But here against Claudio Silva, he looked great. Silva's a multifaceted threat. He can end people on the feet. He hits hard, and he's a very good grappler. And Mcgee was able to fight behind his longer reach. You know, he's putting a nice jab on him. He was landing good right hands. And he was able to just stop. He really just stonewalled everything that Silva was doing. Like, Silva was trying to throw big looping punches. He answered that on the feet and, you know, didn't really give Silva anything. Anytime they made it to the floor, Silva was able to get nothing off. Like, he was like just sitting in guard. Mcgee was sitting in guard and half guard. And yeah, Claudio Silva wasn't able to do anything, and he started, he was visibly tiring near the end, and Mcgee's cardio was holding up. He looked great for these, this older, there's like two welterweight divisions. There's like the young killers and the old guys, and for the old guys, he's looking good, he's looking a lot better than a lot of these other old guys. He looked physically a lot better too out there than when I saw him last. He was looking fuller, thicker frame. Solid win for Court Mcgee. Claudio Silva doesn't have that name, star power behind him, that you don't really get a lot of clout off the dub. But people who know, he's good, man. He's good. And he was on like a 13-fight win streak before Kraus handed him an L, He's not washed up and he's not trash by any means. So this is a good win, good performance by Court Mcgee. Bruno Silva, Victor Rodriguez. Bruno Silva is making a name for himself. This guy is knocking motherfuckers out, dude. Round 1 minute in, he just puts Victor Rodriguez to the floor. He landed a big right hand over top, and then he followed in with a flying knee. You can see Rodriguez is visibly kind of wobbled, needs to regain some, solidity mentally. And then Silva, he steps back, explodes right back in with another thunderous right hand, and just sparked the guy, just head to the floor, dropped him like a fucking dirty pair of shorts. It was sweet. That was a good knockout. I like seeing that stuff. I know he trains with Henry Cejudo. He seems, a lot of these dudes from Brazil are at least competent grapplers, and usually are a bit more than just competent. This guy has power on the hand. He looks like he's going to be an issue for a lot of these guys. And a flyweight that's able to put knockout power on people, there's not a lot of them out there. So that's just another threat you're going to have to worry about that other flyweights don't have to worry about. It's hard to put a knockout out when you got such a small frame, but man, he did it and he looked great. It's not really much to pick apart since the fight didn't go that long, but yeah, I'm excited to see him fight some higher level guys. I think he's on a pretty good little tear too. Bruno Silva, I don't know what his record is right now, but yeah, he's certainly, I'm pretty sure he's won at least his last 2 or 3. Josh Coolabao and Shailan Nuerdenbeke. I don't know. I slaughtered the name. I apologize. This was another good fight. Josh Coolabao, he got the dub. He fought long in the feet, was throwing good strikes, good uppercuts, and he had great anti-wrestling. This is the fight I was referencing against in that Shabazian Hermansen breakdown I was doing a little earlier in the episode. Coolabao, even though he gave some of these takedowns up, he was able to get back up every time and not give Shailan any rest. And you could see as the fight played out, the wrestler, stronger guy, slowed down, and Coolabao was able to do more on the feet, get more of his punches on the feet going. It was great. It was a really it was like mastery for a striker. This is if you're a striker who struggles with wrestlers getting put on the ground, watch that Josh Coolabao fight. He put some good keys to success to making these wrestlers work and struggle, and not just, he never once accepted position, really. He just got back up every time, forced that scramble, immediately bounced back up, never accepted the position, and it was great. And it paid out in his favor. Good win for Josh Coolabao. Nuerdenbeke, I think he has potential in this division. He's one, you got those UFC first fight jitters, and 2, he fought a guy who actually you don't see many guys doing the stuff Coolabao's doing. Actually knows how to fucking anti-wrestle and will hop up off the ground quick and tire you out. So I think Shailan's got some potential in this division, and he's physically very imposing. got very good wrestling. He looked in the moments where he was doing his stuff, which was more like round 1 and earlier round 2. He was getting when you're watching him do his takedowns and try to assume control, you can tell the guy is very skilled. Very calm, very composed, very strong. Yeah, I think he will be very interesting to see because featherweight has a lot of really good wrestlers. It'd be fun to watch. I think we got like Marco Madsen. I don't know if he fights at featherweight, if he's lightweight, but he's a great wrestler. I know you got fucking Matthias Gamrot, that Kuta Taladze guy that Gamrot was fighting. There's so many, too many to name. Great wrestlers, exciting fights. It was a good fight, good featherweight scrap. David Dvorak versus Juan Camilo Ronderos. I don't think he's from Brazil. Don't need to drop that HR. This was a really good fight for Dvorak. Unfortunate person to have to come face on like a 2-day notice for Juan Camilo. So I'm not going to judge the guy too harshly on his performance. Like, you're going against a honed blade who's been sharpened for like a month or two. You're coming in on 2 days notice. Yeah, probably not going to work out that well. But yeah, David Dvorak, he looked sharp on the feet. He was able to get to Juan Camilo's back. And he had wrapped the arm, one arm around the neck before he'd even really completed getting his leg hooks in. And he did what I love seeing. He hid that hand underneath his chin, and he was able to finish the choke one-handed with just the hand under his chin because he had gotten it in so early. He had gotten it in tight. That was the first hook of any kind he had gotten in, was that hand underneath the neck, that chin strap underneath tight, hid the hand so Juan Camilo couldn't pull the hand out. And then he got the hooks, and then by the time the leg hooks came in, the guy was already like getting ready to tap, and it was like another second or two, and he had to tap because he was getting choked out. It was a great submission. I think Dvorak's going to be an issue for a lot of these flyweights. He's very skilled on the ground. You can tell by some of these little things he's doing, and he's not a slouch on the feet. I think he's more vulnerable on the feet to getting touched, and he does get touched on the feet, but he's got a good chin. Flyweights generally aren't knocking out with one punch, and he actually has some threats on the feet of his own. He's kind of got that Hermansen-esque, like, it's not necessarily like super technical and fluid, but it's got like that. He does it with, he's doing it to hurt you. He's doing it fast, and he's doing it hard. Punching these almost herky-jerky kind of like, I know people take that as an insult, but it's more, it really is just like quick and kind of surprising. It's not like you're going to see that being taught at like a technical boxing gym or something, So that kind of punch, I think it works in his favor. But yeah, I'm very excited to see whoever Dvorak fights next. I know he was supposed to be getting his main card love against a more established flyweight, but yeah, I'd love to see him fight anyone else, any other, maybe get into the ranked opponents. He seems to be a cut above these unranked flyweights. And then the first fight of the night, we had Rafael Alves and Damir Ismagulov. Ismagulov looked really good. I haven't seen him fight. I think he's been dealing with injuries, hence why I don't really know the guy. But he looked super sharp. On the feet, looked really good. Was fighting really long. And the way he moves and like strikes, I was getting shades of what's his name? Good Irish striker, doesn't fight anymore. Not Conor McGregor. I think he was like a 140, maybe a 155er. Damn, man, the name is slipping me, and I'm gonna feel stupid when I realize it later. But he was giving me shades of that. He had good boxing. He was landing that jab, that right hand. He was putting good combination, good uppercuts actually on Alves whenever he would kind of duck in to maybe try to take it to the floor. Alves was a pretty physically imposing guy and pretty good at grappling from what I would assume. But he wasn't able to do anything. I mean, Damir Ismagulov had the 2 takedowns. I mean, if you look at the significant strikes, total strikes 36 to 141. Like, I mean, that tells you the fight. He got that 0 takedowns to 2 for Ismagulov. Just kind of ran a clinic around the whole thing. He did have dangerous points. There's points where he gets hit with a big one, but he held it down, was able to do what he needed to do. Heavy ground and pound. I really liked what he was standing in guard, throwing these like spearing straights into the stomach of Alves, and you could tell it was bothering him. He wasn't just like pillow slapping him. These were big punches. Yeah, this was a good fight. I'm excited to see who Ismagulov fights next. Was this lightweight? It was a lightweight bout. So lightweight, that's a tough division, but I mean, the guy obviously has the wrestling, has some wrestling, so he can defend some takedowns. Good technical boxing. Keeps that hand by his chin. Rarely opens for these like vulnerabilities. I think he's gonna be an issue for people in this division. I won't know how far he goes until we see him fight some higher level names that are a bit more established. But yeah, this is a good overall fight card. I think it was a little better than I expected off the names and matchups alone. Had some surprising matchups. Some upsets, yeah. I mean, that Esparza one, I would consider that an upset, yeah. I mean, the odds were a pick'em like odds, but in my brain, it was more of an upset. It wasn't a crazy upset, but the way she did actually finishing the fight was like an upset. But yeah, these were great fights. I'm excited for what we got coming later this week. I think actually, fuck no, I'm not. This is like Augusto Sakai versus Rosenstrike, right? Oh man, I haven't looked at the rest of the card, but that's not a very enticing. Oh man, I do actually. I was looking at Twitter. I did see that's like 3 lackluster heavyweight matchups in a row on the main card. Kind of a bummer. But I'll save more griping about that for the next episode when I break that down. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.